Welcome to the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast, your guide to understanding how to get out of the Wall Street rat race and start your own mailbox money lifestyle. Now, don't let these handsome Southern draws fool you. These financial minds are teaching our country to enhance savings, increase cash flow, and create passive income, all without the help of Wall Street. Are you ready to break through? Now here are your hosts, Russ Morgan and Joey Murray.
Welcome in. This is the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. This is episode 40. Russ, welcome into the show. And we have a special guest. Mr. Caleb Guilliams is in.
Yeah, man. Thanks for joining the show this week.
It's a pleasure being down here.
Yeah, so we've got one of the youngest advisors in the nation sitting in here with us. And this guy is not the newest advisor, but one of the youngest, because Caleb actually was advising people at age 18. So he's now 4 years into this at age 22, and he's going to give us some feedback from time to time, because we just got back, Joey, from a long trip over to Mississippi.
Well, not long in the sense of it took us forever to get there. I mean, it's long. If you're on Highway 20, it gets a little bit long. There's not a whole lot in between Birmingham and Jackson, Mississippi.
No,
right?
I was looking for a Starbucks on the way back because my eyes were getting heavy. Yeah, there's no town that has a Starbucks, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Well, don't get me started on trying to find that Smoothie King. I ended up in the wrong place. I blame Yelp for that, by the way. Yes. Yelp misled us. Okay.
So this is, vacation or, to Mississippi part 4, baby.
But that's not what we're here to talk about, right? We're talking about what we learned in Mississippi. And it goes back to this idea. We were actually just talking about this prior to this. How many times have you heard of somebody that was super rich, famous, whatever, and they make tons more money than all of us combined, but yet they pay a lower tax bracket than all of us?
Yeah, you've heard that. You've heard Warren Buffett pays less taxes or less tax rate, I guess, than his assistant.
Yeah. How does that even make sense?
Well, I had no idea until we went over there and we dove in deep. And we're not going to go deep with you today, but I am going to share the things that I'm going to take away and put in my own financial life, because there's lots of money we're leaving on the table.
Well, and even to your point, so some of the examples that we went over in this 2-day class, they were showing 50, 100, 200, and 300,000 in tax savings per year. And so, I'm just curious, Russ, what would you do with that money? If you had that money just kind of all of a sudden, it's no longer going to Uncle Sam, it's now in the Morgan family bank account.
I'm going to be honest, right? This is what it's about. It's just opening up, open kimono, if you will. Range Rover's in the conversation.
Range, yes. We saw some Range Rovers while we were out there, and it was like he started to salivate a little bit, especially since the back of his Yukon, 2006 Yukon, would not open.
Man,
mysteriously.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: is that if I could save $300,000 in taxes, that would be awesome. And I would say, well, let's take a third and buy something fun with it, right? Let's take a third and maybe give it away, and then let's take a third and put it away for a rainy day in the future. So there's going to be some things in there, but I'm sure I wouldn't spend a third of it on a Range Rover. I'd have to I'd probably get a Toyota Corolla or something, and my wife would get a new car. But that's the reality of what would happen.
By the way, all of our luggage was in the back of that Yukon that we could not get into through the back.
I'm sick and tired of you guys beating up on my car, man. I'm just trying to be thrifty here. Trying to look forward to my future. I'm trying to create passive income.
No doubt.
Keeping my expenses as low as I can.
Well, I'll tell you what, I would be hard pressed not to spend a good bit of that savings. So I'm with you. Not on the Range. I'm thinking Tesla, right? The Teslas, just the idea of having something to drive me to work. That'd be so money.
And I've ridden in your car before with you. I would not want to be driving. I'd want somebody else to drive, even if it was a computer. So, yeah, I think Tesla is a really good option for you.
Well, I just think it would take the stigma off of me being an elderly person driving that Avalon and having somebody else driving me to work because I was too old to drive myself.
Caleb, we're riding down the road in the Avi, and Joey, he's great at lots of things. Driving is not a skill that he's really mastered, and at this point in life, it's too late. Let's just give it up. And so he's driving the Avi, and people are like, "Oh, bless that old lady's heart,"
I'm sure that's what they're saying.
Yeah, like I'm gonna give her a break, and they pull up and they're like, "Wait a second, that must be your grandson driving that car."
All right, I have nothing else even to say to that except, you got to drive recklessly, okay, Russ? You got to take control, and forgive me for being that guy. I had to take control. All right, but we digress, right? This is we're going to go into a couple things here that are in addition to what we talked about in episode 17. We had Clay Hagler on talking about the jobs or what's it called?
The tax cut.
Yeah, the tax cuts from
tax reform.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about a couple of those things. But really we're diving into something I don't think most people have really thought about is quit concerning yourselves or depending on your accountant to be the guy that's coming up with tax strategies. Okay. But that's what we've always thought, right? I mean, Russ, we talk about this all the time. Why isn't the accountant providing ideas? A lot of our clients are like, man, I just wish there was some ideas to save money on taxes.
Well, I've had plenty of people share frustrations with their CPA, with me about their CPA. My CPA is not providing the ideas. I hear of other people doing things. Just kind of going back to the first statement you made, how many times do we know somebody making more money than we are, but yet paying less in taxes? And they're taking out this frustration as if it's the accountant's fault, if the CPA is not doing their job. And I think one of the things I took away from this trip and spending time with tax attorneys and actually advanced tax planners,
right?
That's all they do. They don't do tax returns,
right? Is
that it's not the CPA's fault. I mean, the CPA is doing a job and doing the job of doing historical returns, right? They're looking at what you spent last year and applying it in there. And then again, most great CPAs are going to help you avoid the basic mistakes. They're going to make sure, did you spend money? Did you travel? Did you buy anything new? Did you have a change in your family life? They're going to catch the basic things, right?
Right.
But expecting them to be a planner, expecting them to think through stuff that's happening in the future, they just don't have time for it because they can only, one of the things I took away is that the CPAs have to charge a fee, right? A tax returning fee. If they had to go and do all this research, do all this planning on each and every return, right? Each person, because everybody's unique. Everybody's scenario is different. Then instead of charging $750 to $1,000 for a tax return, they're going to have to charge $2,500 or $3,000, right, to equal their hourly charge. Well, wait, what happens whenever somebody's sitting at a cocktail party or a baseball game and they just got finished paying their tax bill and writing their accountant a check, and they happen to mention, it just kind of sucks. It just spent $75,000 to the government and just wrote my accountant a $3,000 check. And they're like, whoa. You paid what?
Yeah, why'd you do that? Mine only charged me $750.
And they're like, oh, man, my guy must be ripping me off. So they know that there's a cost, right? No different if you're driving down the street and you see one gas station says $2.50 per gallon, and the other one says $7.50 per gallon. Which one are you going to stop at?
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Everybody knows the price of something, but the value of nothing, right? Somebody famous in our office today said that, didn't they?
Somebody write that down.
That was beautiful.
But that's really what's happening is there's value in what those CPAs, if they were to do that, but most people would never figure out what that value is. And so then they would just end up moving to a cheaper CPA. So it's not a CPA's fault that they're not giving us all of these potential strategies that exist.
Yeah, and I like to think about it as almost like this analogy. Why, if we went into the ER and you were going to see a doc, you had something that just happened to you, right? You just had an emergency happen. That ER doc is there to address the situation that has just occurred. You broke an arm, you had some sort of a situation with, all of a sudden it's a trauma situation. They're handling it, they're reacting to it. But you would never expect that person, if it was, let's say it was a car wreck, you would never expect that ER doc to say, okay, now let's back up a second. Now, did you use your signal to turn into the left lane, or did you make sure to have your hands at
10 and 2?
10 and 2. I mean, they're not going to give you driving lessons. Who's going to provide that? It's that driver's ed teacher or whomever you went to learn how to drive, your mom and dad maybe. But those are two very different things. One's proactive, providing you like direction, and then the other one is reactive. And I don't mean to, downplay the role of your accountant, but we just can't continue to ask them to provide strategy. There's people that do that, and that's who we interview.
Well,
right?
yeah. If you probably have said that to yourself. I mean, speaking of this, obviously we traveled over there, we stayed the night, and Caleb, every time I leave out of a hotel, I don't know if you do this, but every time I leave out of a hotel, I bet you I make 4 trips around the room, like looking under beds, going to the bathroom. I go to the door, get ready to leave. I turn back around. I go do it again. It's almost OCD to some degree. And then I'll get in the car, and for about an hour, I've got this gut feeling I've left something.
Absolutely.
Right? There's something that's been left. I don't know. Have you ever had that feeling?
All the time.
Yeah. Well, I think I have that pretty much too every single year when I write that huge check to the government. It's like, I know there's only 4 or 5 pages that tells us what to pay for taxes in the tax code, but then there's thousands of pages that tell us how not to pay the taxes.
Right.
And I'm always going, ooh,
Surely I'm missing something.
did I miss something? Is there something in there that I didn't take advantage of that I could have?
Right.
And when I went over with you guys and we heard some of these strategies, I'm like, oh, yes, I have been leaving, my shaving kit at the hotel. Right. My kid did leave
that's an
the
expensive
item that
shaving
they
kit,
had to buy while we were on the trip underneath the bed. I mean, that's where it's going to be, and I'm not going to, try to spend $25 to get it overnighted to me. So we just buy a new one.
Yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, we're asking the question, shouldn't we be taking advantage of the benefits that are available to us? Mm-hmm. Like if this knowledge exists and we can pay less in taxes than the way Trump and Warren Buffett and all these guys we always hear. I mean, why else was Trump and Hillary going at it about how much he's had on his tax return? He wouldn't reveal it, right?
Well, I mean, I remember one of the episodes. It seemed like an episode. it seemed like a soap opera during the debates, right? But there was one time during one of the debates where Hillary was going after Donald on the fact that he hadn't paid taxes, and he blurted in, "That makes me smart."
Right.
That makes me smart, right? Because he was basically saying but the tax attorneys that he's employed has found ways to help him avoid paying taxes. And he says, that makes me smart. And we need to find ways and should find ways to legally, keyword legally, not pay excess in taxes.
Well, going along with our theme on this show, one of those key components of this show is to increase cash flow. Well, if I have to pay $200,000 less in taxes this year, I just created a lot more cash flow that I can do the things that we talked about.
Well, I mean, we all have lifestyle things. By the way, on this show, I'm giving the disclaimer, we're not accountants, we're not attorneys. Don't take any of this as advice that you need to just go implement without consulting somebody. But yes, if we have those dollars, then we can buy things. Now, we shouldn't go buy stupid stuff. I say Range Rover, and that's a wonderful item. I'd love to drive one, but that costs more than my first house I bought. I'm going to struggle with that for a long time. At least while I have 4 kids in the house, and there's a myriad of things that even though we built a house last year, we still have things that we want to do in the house that would benefit our whole family. And I'll at the same time, my 5-year-old will stick a, empty sucker stick, between the seats. It doesn't matter if it's an '06 Yukon or, 2018 Range. So, I mean, I'm just not ready for that yet.
Right. Well, at the same time, we as a group here, we have taken the time to find these strategic partners. Like we have an integrated resource network that we're constantly expanding. And this is just one other example that we want to bring to our clients. And so at the very first outset, we walked away with a couple of key takeaways, right? And the first one we've already mentioned, we can't rely on a CPA to be our tax strategist, but we have to take ownership. We have to be involved. And it's really not fair to the CPA.
Right. It's
for those reasons we mentioned.
No. And I say step 2, there's tons of ideas that can help us save money on taxes that are just totally legal. So here, let's break this down real quick, because one of the things that I figured out that is a must after looking through some of the changes in the tax laws, and I didn't know this, and my brother-in-law who has 11 kids didn't know this, is that they have now taken away the personal exemption that existed for everyone who lived in your household. So if for me, 4 kids and my wife and me, that's 6 people, those personal exemptions were $4,050 a piece. That's $25,000 that is now gone. We don't get to write that off anymore.
Right.
Those are big, big dollars. If you live in a state that pays state tax, Alabama's 5%, then now they've limited the state and local tax exemption off your federal tax to only $10,000. So I think, was it you, Caleb, that said, isn't it double taxation?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, because we used to, and basically, if we paid state tax on those same dollars, and then we had to turn around and pay on the same dollar federal tax, it was double taxation. Well, they would say, "Oh, well, we'll give you, a deduction by taking whatever you paid on the state to be able to write it off against your federal." Well, now they've capped that at $10,000. So in the state of Alabama, if you make more than $200,000, then now you're double taxed on those dollars. That's huge. Like, there's some big dollars that are now coming out of our pocket that didn't exist before.
Well, there's a lot of things that were mentioned in this meeting over 2 days. And for those of y'all don't know me incredibly well, there was a lot of glazing going on. Like, there's a lot of, hey, I love the way this sounds, but I'm not going to be able to tell you anything about this. Now, but when you do talk about entertainment, I peek up into that, right? I perk up because there's a lot of things we do within our business and elsewhere that we spend money on dollars that are meals and entertainment, right? So those exclusions or the ability to be able to write off up to 50% went away, right? So we had to find ways. I mean, that's a big issue.
For our business and for most small service-oriented business, you do entertain a lot. I mean, we were out with a group of like 15, 20 doctors at Topgolf the other day. And that used to be a legitimate entertainment expense, marketing expense that you could just write off. You didn't have to have a business conversation. It was literally, I mean, it was anticipated that you're having a business conversation, but you didn't have to. Now, for us to do that, we have to have a very organized business structure that we're going to talk about while we're there, which we did, by the way. And I handed out plenty of business cards to these guys. We had lots.
We have picture proof.
we had lots of conversation about different ways that we're helping people reduce taxes, we were helping them, create cash flow, enhance savings, create passive income, right? These are discussions that we made sure to have, because that's the only thing is deductibles when you're having a business meeting, not when you're just out there having fun, hitting the
building relationships. I mean, those things are valid for a small business to be engaging in that does turn into business.
And it's gone. And so I think of some of the things that we learned in creating certain types of entities that help us, right? I mean, there's some simple things, I'm not going to give you advice. Thankfully, I already had an S Corp. My CPA had set me up an S Corp. But what I learned is that I need to, continue to look through tax returns for people and just notice how many people are set up in a way where maybe all their income's flowing straight to them and they're paying an extra 3.8% on the self-employment taxes that exist for that.
And I'll just jump in here. One of probably the biggest takeaways that I got from being in the room, and by the way, the Italian stallion and I kind of took a back seat, but it was like proactiveness. What you said is you have to be proactive as it relates to your taxes. And strategy has everything to do with it. And so someone that's new to the business and helping people try to maximize their money, I realized that if we're not maximizing taxes, we are leaving potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table, and we know what the value of that could be over time. So,
it's sick. And to your point, that this wasn't just a tax specific thing. It was incorporating, like you said, the legal aspects of entity structuring and things of that nature, that those two things combined really create a lot of synergy, and they work together with the tax code.
Well, here's it always in real estate, they say the 3 keys to real estate, Caleb, is
location, location, location.
Exactly. And in finance, it's liquidity, liquidity, liquidity.
Yeah.
Thank you for filling that in.
In the IRS world, though, I'm looking at you, Joey. What's the 3 keys to the IRS?
Dude, I'm out.
Is it a 4-letter word?
No, it's documentation. Documentation.
Yes, I also walked away knowing that I need to do a lot more than that.
And that was the beauty of sitting there with a tax strategy group, a group who is planning not only how to help us reduce taxes, but also to help us limit our exposure to risk and audit, right? And if we're getting an audit, that we have the right and proper documentation. So they shared with us, like Mile IQ app as a way for us to be able to document our mileage, the Tiny Scanner app that you pay like $5 for, and you can use that to take pictures of the receipts of things that you have and the business purpose of it. Little bitty small things, but then obviously they had some really like complex and very detailed books that they use to keep records for all these things. That's going to help me because I'm doing this. This is a done thing. This is something I'm going to do in my life. That's going to help me cut down taxes. I mean, not by buying the range, but there's going to be some vacations. There's going to be some extra dollars saved and some extra dollars given away. But also it's going to help me feel more secure in that I'm not exposed by maybe being not as documented as I need to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, again, we don't have time nor the expertise to go into some of those very specific strategies. Good news is we do have a workshop that we're going to be putting on in August. So, if you want to learn more about this kind of thing, we want to make sure you have a place to do that, to sign up for that workshop, and you'll be able to get a copy of what we're going to do with our specialists in this. If you're if you're spending more than $100,000 in taxes every year, you got to sign up. This is a no-brainer.
So go on our show notes. We're going to give you a link that's going to allow you to be able to sign up for that workshop that's happening in August. And I think this is going to be a huge benefit to you and your family. Also, while you're on the show notes, I'm going to encourage you to click on the link that we're going to give you to direct you straight to one of the resources that we picked up while we were there, which was the Bradford Tax Institute.
Yes.
This is a group that puts out constant information on what's going on and ways that we can reduce our tax exposure. And for some of you, you're going to be like, wait a second. The last thing I wanted to be doing with any of my time is reading tax law. And I'm with you on that. But at some level, just having some high level exposure to things is going to help us ask the right questions of the advisors that we're around.
Yeah, this is taking proactive steps. This is a small thing you can do that will potentially lead to, again, being able to provide that resource to the people that are doing your taxes or other things. So
here's the takeaways that I had from this is that, one, I'm going to not feel that I'm leaving money on the table because I'm going to employ somebody that's their 100% job is to look in the future. And they're going to work side by side with my existing CPA. It's not like I'm taking something away from my CPA.
It should enhance that relationship.
It's enhancing. I think so. I think it's going to be awesome for all of us. And I'm going to feel better about that for sure.
Well, and you're going to even be providing better documentation to your CPA as a result of employing these strategies because it's going to be required. So I see that as a huge win that I'm looking forward to. And again, being able to quiet that voice in the back of your head that, man, surely there's something else I should be doing. There's going to be no comparison to that. That's a peace of mind that we don't have today.
No, if we have more money, there's more things that we can do that are much more enjoyable. And again, if you want to give money to charity, I guarantee you giving it directly versus it going through the government is going to have a greater impact. And that's a huge takeaway for me. And knowing that I'm not going to be put in a position to where I'm reactive, but I'm taking a proactive approach because I don't want to be the yard doc in the situation. I want to be the driver's ed teacher. I mean, I don't want to wear those like coaching shorts, but I want to be teaching people.
You want to drive that car that says driver's education in process or whatever on the side?
Student driver.
That guy, student driver. Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Caleb, for jumping in. By the way, for everybody, for you listening, we've got an episode coming up in a couple weeks where Caleb is going to be sharing with us the book that he just wrote, which I am totally jealous of at the age of 22 that I have not done yet, but definitely motivation. I'm envying that. And I know that podcast is going to be something you're going to want to listen to. So as always, we thank you for listening and see you next time.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.